All right, this is the Lineup Podcast, and we have a very special guest for you today, hailing from the Garden Isle of Kauai, which has produced the likes of Titus Kinimaka, Keala Kennelly, Bethany Hamilton, Alana Blanchard, Dustin Barca, Andy and Bruce Irons, and others. She collected 2022's Rookie of the Year award on the Championship Tour, with her potent brand of power surfing carrying her into her third season amongst the world's elite in 2024, representing brands like Hurley, Lost Surfboards, Vertra, FCS, Ronin, and others. Gabriela Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the lineup today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here talking to you. It's going to be a fun little chat we're going to have.
That's right. And we were joking before we recorded. This is early in the morning on Valentine's Day, so I appreciate you spending the Valentine's Day on the podcast. That's a good start. But
no worries. It's a great start.
Early for you in Hawaii. Are you an early riser?
Yes, I am. And we're obviously in the sunset waiting period right now. So waves are flat today and it's supposed to be huge tomorrow. So just in the routine of getting up early, and yeah, it's easy to get up early in Hawaii and go check the waves and just get your day started. Right.
And are you the kind of surfer that, even if it's small or even if it's gigantic, do you have to find somewhere to surf? Or are you the kind of surfer that's like, look, if it's flat today, I'm not going to waste my energy trying to find somewhere to surf. I'm going to work on other parts of my training.
Yeah, no, I think I'm more like that. Like if it's flat, I know that I can still surf when the waves come up. So I'll just go train or spend the day doing something else, get my mind off of surfing for a little bit. And yeah, I think I work better like that, where I'm not like have to surf every day.
Right. It makes sense. And we mentioned you're from Kauai. Are you still based over there? Did you move over to Oahu full time?
No, so I am still based over on Kauai,
right.
And I've been here since December, just getting ready for Pipe and Sunset. But no, I'm still based over there, and I love it. I don't think I'm ever moving, but
right.
it's a really special place, and yeah, it's home, so it's the best place for me. So, yeah.
And it's a quick hop, right, over to Oahu, and as you mentioned,
literally.
Yeah. Oh, go on.
It's literally a 20-minute flight, so I could go home and back on a lay day. That'd be totally fine.
That makes sense. And so the idea of coming out and preparing for the start of the 2024 CT season, we just finished the Lexus Pipe Pro presented by Yeti. As you mentioned, we're in the window for the Hurley Pro Sunset Beach. Going back to December and getting ready for the year, like what does your day-to-day look like? Are you focusing every session at Pipeline? Are you mixing it up? Does Rocky Point or any of the other kind of non-CT venues get a run just for your training, or are you just focused in on specific venues?
Back in December when I was getting ready, I was still doing a lot of gym training, and I was obviously trying to focus most of my time at Pipe because I'm really comfortable at Sunset. And it's just, as more reps you get out at Pipe, the better you are. Even if I've had sessions where I go out there and I get a straight closeout and I come in, but just seeing where people are taking off, I think is like one of the biggest learning things for me. I do spend a lot of time at Pipe, but also I think there's a fine line between spending too much time out there and getting frustrated and like wrapped up in your mind, like, oh my God, I haven't caught a wave. And then just going and surfing and doing what like I know how to do and big carves. So there's a fine line, but yes, most of my sessions were out at Pipe.
Right. It is interesting because you hear that from, elite level surfers like yourself. It seems like the consistent answer is like, it's just time out there. And even listening to like John Florence, he's like, I have sessions where I go out and I don't even catch a wave. You're just sitting there for a few hours. And it is one of those places, like even a few years ago when I think it was during COVID, I can't remember, but a few of us got quarantined in one of the houses there. And I spent days just sitting in the backyard watching Pipe. And I'm like, I actually think I've gotten better at surfing it and not like just from watching it for 8 hours a day. Like it's just that exposure thing.
It is. And it's just so mesmerizing. Like you could sit as a surfer, you could sit on the beach and I could watch it all day. Like it's just so awesome to watch. But yeah, watching it you learn so much. And hopefully my goal one day is to get the best pro of my life out there. Hasn't come yet, but I know as long as I keep going out there and putting my time in, it'll come.
Right. And I guess that's one of the huge advantages to being a CT surfer and starting the season out at Pipe is, even though it can be big and dangerous and scary, and I guess Pipe has like a ton of different moods. We'll get into how the first event went for you, but you're out there and you have opportunity, right? And it's probably one of those lineups when you're not in a heat, it's like you could be out there and there's just no opportunity. But I mean, a lot of surfers, men and women, were saying it's so spooky being out there with just one other person sometimes, because every other practice session there's 100 people out there and they're like your reference points for a lot of things too. Have you found that competing out there, just being like, wow, I'm a little lost just with one other person out here?
Actually, I almost feel like it's opposite for me a little bit. When I'm out there with one other person, it's just like, it's all these worries are gone. Like, there's not anyone in your way. So and I know I have lineup spots, so I know where I want to be. And like, I grew up, we had junior pros there, we had QS events there. So I have had the empty lineup like once a year since I was like 13 or something. So it's gotten a lot more comfortable. And I'm pretty confident out there when knowing the lineup and where to go when it's just one other person.
Right. Well, let's walk through the event, right? So opening round for you, it's not elimination, but the goal is you have to be top two to skip that dreaded elimination round. You drew eventual winner Katie Simmers and Isabella Nichols, but you had a pretty good opening round heat, like a couple of mid-range scores. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunity. And then you moved into the bracket stage where you ran into Brisa Hennessy, and it was a couple of those days where the conditions were a little bit challenging. But walk us through those two heats, like what worked for you, maybe what could you have done differently, and ultimately what are you going to take with you into the Sunset Beach comp?
Yeah, Pipe was a really tricky event for me. I think that there's so much buildup around this event. Like, oh my God, it's going to be 8 foot. I need to get my big boards out. It's scary. Like, everything about Pipe is scary, and you have so much time to think about it. And then we show up and the girls are on, and it's like, it's realistically turns with the odd barrel. So you kind of have to shift your whole mindset to like, okay, it's actually kind of like a beach break out there, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to there's mostly turns. So I'm going out there to do turns. And the first heat I got through with doing turns. It was like, when it's like that size too, it's kind of like broken up a little more. Like, you have like the Aints Bowl, and then you have like, you can sit up kind of top at like proper back door.
Right.
And it was all right. So I knew that, and I love the Aints Bowl. So I was like, my goal was to just go down there and sit in my little zone and get a couple scores. Ended up working in the first heat, and I got through. And then my second heat, it was, I came up against Brisa, and she's a weapon, especially in barrels. Like, if it left, she's probably so comfortable just spending so much time in Fiji and stuff.
Right.
So I knew I'd have my work cut out for me, but then it was also really small. I think it was like 2 foot, and backdoor again as well. And I kind of got stuck in between the Aints Bowl and backdoor, and I didn't move all the way down to like where I wanted to sit, and ended up costing me the heat. I think I lost needing like 3 or something. I could have done like one power turn and gotten it, which was obviously a bummer and hurt a little bit, especially because the next day was firing.
Right.
So that was just like that was heartbreaking. But I think what I can take away is just like, I just got to trust myself, trust my surfing ability. I know I can do it. It came down to my positioning in the heat, didn't come down to my surfing. So moving into Sunset, I know that lineup like really well. It's one of my favorite spots, and I think the wave suits my style. So just gonna focus on me that event and what I want to do, and put myself on the best waves.
I like it. I like what you said there too, because it's a funny one. Like, I think, surfing has changed so much in such a short amount of time. Like, this is my 19th year here, but even sort of the commentary class online going like, you guys should move it back to December. And I'm like, I was on the beach in December for like 15 years when we used to have it in that window. And it wasn't, that's kind of early season. There's still a lot of sand on the reef, but I think people have kind of selective memories of what they thought the Dream Tour was like or what they thought Pipe was like back in the day. And I remember that from when I was a fan. Like I would just get the highlight section in the video, or I'd look at the perfect waves in the magazine, and I thought, oh man, there's never any bad waves on tour. Like this is the Dream Tour. Every single heat must be firing. And that was never the case, but we just weren't exposed to it. And so what you're saying is interesting, right? Especially at Pipe, because you could just have a day, you could just have a heat, you just could have a session where I was all psyched for, 8-foot barrels. That is not what this is. But then in the back of your mind, you're going, even at 3 feet, even at 2 feet, there might be the odd barrel that is probably going to score because this is a barrel riding event. No, how do I decide to pursue those or just go to turns? Like it felt like that was real tense for a lot of men and women on those smaller days.
Yeah, for sure. And back to what you said, like Pipe, anywhere in the world, but especially Pipe, everyone only remembers the biggest and the best days. Like I'm not gonna remember a heat that I watched or a contest I watched at Pipe 10 years ago and think like, oh, I remember that day that it was 1 foot and those people had to grovel through that to get to the perfect day. I'm not going to remember that. So yeah, everyone just remembers it good, but there's also so much stuff that the surfers have to fight through to get to the good days. And it just makes it that much better when you get there and you have the chance to perform. And it goes back also to mindset. Like you show up on the beach and it's 1 foot, you could stand there and complain, or you could be like, it's 1 foot, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to make the best of it. There's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, and I want to be the winner. So it's just how you approach the situation, and just try not to, for me, get into that negative mindset of, oh, it's only 1 foot, 2 foot. But
right.
I'm learning as I go, for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that final day that most competitors missed out on, right? I mean, there were good days leading up to it. There were small days or challenging days. But I mean, people are saying that final day at Pipe last Saturday was maybe the best day of women's competitive surfing ever. It was certainly amazing, watching, Betty Lou and Molly and Katie and everybody kind of do their things. Where were you watching that final day, and what were your impressions of it?
Yeah, so obviously I was really bummed out, but I did watch a little bit, and I saw the highlights after, but I was out surfing at sunset, so I didn't watch it live. But the highlights, it was insane. Just the way, like, Betty really impressed me. Her barrel at Pipe on her backside, that was insane. Molly as well, and yeah, Katie too. They all charging, and it was really cool to see that. Like, I'm sure most of us on tour, if we got the opportunity to be out there, we would give it our best crack too. Right. But it was so inspiring. I know that Molly's put a lot of time out at Pipe and in Tahiti to prove her backhand barrel riding, and it's really showing. And then Katie's just a weapon. She just sends it. So that's really cool to see. And Betty Lou, she's also, like, I know she just came back from shoulder surgery and in her off season. So to see her go for it and get some of the best waves that I've seen a girl get out there is really inspiring.
Well, let's switch gears back to Sunset Beach. We are in the window for the Hurley Pro Sunset Beach. It is late day today. This is Wednesday, February 14th. Our podcast will go up next Tuesday, so you may have well run by that stage. You personally, looking at the forecast, what are you seeing in terms of conditions, and how does that inform the equipment that you decide to focus on in terms of, do you have like one magic board for a range of conditions, or do you have like a number where you're like, if it hits this marker, I'm moving up to this length board? Yeah,
so looking at the forecast now, I think we'll probably run on the 17th. I'm thinking after there's like a huge swell coming, and we'll get surf the downside of that. But I have a really good quiver for sunset. Matt has like dialed in his Hawaii boards so well, like it's insane. So I ride anything from, like, if we're at Sunset Point, I'll ride a 6.0, and then my biggest board is a 6.8 if it's huge, but I probably won't ride that. I like to stick in the 6.2 to 6.6 range for like West Bowl and like main sunset So yeah, I'm riding all step drivers, and uh, I have my one favorite in each size. So those ones are on ice, and I know that I can just jump on them and they'll feel good under my feet. And I've I got a whole new quiver this year, so I've been testing them out, and they just work insane. So I'm really excited.
And your particular brand of surfing at Sunset Beach, you've had great success there already at the CT level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, absolutely, as far as events goes, do you feel like this is one where you've got a great shot to win? And if so, like, because you've had great results already there, like, what's that next level of going like, okay, now I'm in the finals, now I'm going to win this event, and that's kind of a career marker that puts you up to that next level.
Yeah, for sure. Sunset has, it's like, I feel like it's my spot. You know, you have these connections with these spots around tour, and I'm sure everyone has a different one, but Sunset is like, I don't know, I just have such a good feeling about it. And I have competed so much there. I got my first pro junior win there. I got my first QS win there. So hopefully now it's my first CT win. That would be a dream. And I just, I don't know, like you said, it just fits my surfing so well. I'm really known for my power, and I can just go into a bowl or a section there and just push as hard as I can. And it just feels so good. So yeah, going into it, I obviously want to win, but I've also learned that like I just got to take it one heat at a time, not get too far ahead of myself, because that's very easy to do. So hopefully I just want to put up some good surfing and do some really good performances, because that would be really cool too.
Well, we love watching you surf anywhere, but I'm really looking forward to watching you do it at Sunset Beach. The Hurley Pro Sunset Beach, the window's open now. It's going to be open through February 21st. So by the time this episode airs, we'll likely be well into competition. For all the listeners out there, make sure you catch all the action on YouTube, worldsurfleague.com, the WSL app, and ESPN+. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. All right, we are coming back from break. This is the Lineup Podcast. I am Dave Proden. I'm here with Kauai's Gabriela Bryan. So, Gabby, let's walk it all the way back. Let's talk about where you came from. Born and raised in Kauai. What was that like? What did mom and dad do? Brothers and sisters? Like, what was your early life like? And how did you get started in surfing?
Yeah, growing up on Kauai with my family, it was a dream. My dad owns a construction business, so he builds houses. He's still doing that. And my mom also helps run the family business. And every day after school, they would pick us up and we'd all just go down to Honolulu and surf. And I guess that's probably where my love for surfing started, is just spending every extra hour that we had at the beach. I fell in love with it. I couldn't get out of the water. And especially having an older brother that surfed, it pushed me to be good and want to compete with him. And yeah, I seriously don't know where I would be in life without surfing and growing up where I did.
Yeah. And it's one of those communities we mentioned, you know, just what, like, paradigm shifting icons in as far as surfers go that Kauai's produced. But it has this interesting tension, at least I think for outsiders, where it seems so special. It produces amazing surfers such as yourself, but it's still like respectfully protective and secretive in a lot of ways. And we've heard all the stories throughout the years where it's like, you can't film there, you can't film there. Not even the Ions brothers could film there. Is that the truth? Are you guys kind of a close-knit community on Kauai and you know, really protect kind of the places that you're able to surf?
Yeah, for sure. I think the community is one of the best things about Kauai. And it's everyone cares so much about it. It is such a special place, and we're just people are trying to keep it like how pristine it is for future generations, which I think is super special. I mean, you see all these places around the world that are changing so much, and don't get me wrong, Kauai is changing too, right. But just how the community is protecting it and keeping it special is also, it makes me so happy, because I know how much of a special place it is and how much history it has. And it's just amazing that that piece of the earth is still as pristine as one of the most pristine places. It's one of the most beautiful places. We have in really good waves. And like you said, the community is just like the best. I remember growing up there, and I mean, you're obviously kind of like not in the center of attention there for obvious reasons. You can't film, which is understandable. But I grew up and I would go back to Kauai, and it was almost like I was forgotten about because I was over on this rock in the middle of the ocean. And the community, like, I never had a main sponsor growing up, and the community around me is literally what got me to where I am. I can't begin to tell you how many people would just come up to me and was like, you got this. We support you. We know you can do it. You surf so good. Just continue to work hard and believe in yourself. I would go to train with Dustin Barca, and I did boxing for a while. Like, it just is crazy. Without the community, I wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah. And you also were able to travel at a pretty young age too, right? You're able to spend some time in Indonesia, and I mean, it just seems like it's an interesting phenomenon, right? Because you talk about that community in Kauai. There's, a similar community in Maui where it's not necessarily the center, historically the center of the surfing world because of how much attention Oahu and the North Shore gets, but you have these pockets of community with such amazing surfers, whether it's Maui, whether it's Kauai, whether it's some of the other islands. Sometimes it's really hard to actually leave because, as you said, it's such an amazing place. But to develop into a world-class surfer, to pursue a career on the tour, you have to get comfortable leaving paradise in a way. And it sounds like you were able to get comfortable doing that from an early age.
Yeah, so my dad spent a lot of time in Indo before I came along. So when I was young, he took me there, my whole family there at 5. We went to Nias, and that was my first international trip. And I've actually been back to Indo like 8 times since then. So yeah, I have spent a lot of time. And one cool thing that my parents did was they like took me on free surf trips before we dove straight into just like traveling for competitive surfing, which I think was super awesome because I was traveling for the love of surfing. Like, we were traveling to go get good waves and spend time as a family and just surf our brains out, which was awesome. And he would actually, when I did start competing, we'd go to Indo every summer before our nationals. And it just, you surf so much and you just love it so much that it turns over into competitive surfing, and you're just so in love with surfing that you do good. So yeah, I've been surfing and traveling since I was like, I think I did that at like 6. I went to Indo for the first time.
I mean, it makes a ton of sense. You mentioned Dustin Barca, who former CT surfer, amazing free surfer as well. And you mentioned, training with him, boxing, jiu-jitsu. For you, did any of these other interests, or any of the ones that maybe we haven't talked about, did they ever interest you in the sense of like, well, maybe this is the path I'm going to take and not surfing? Or was it just surfing from such a young age?
It was definitely surfing from such a young age. I remember I did the Irons Brothers contest. It was my first ever contest, and I won like the keiki push-in division. And from that day on, I was hooked. I was like, I want to compete, and I want to win. Surfing and winning, that's just what I want to do. So it was surfing from the very beginning. But then also, like you said, I did jiu-jitsu. Like, me and my best friend, we did it together, and it was just something fun. And I think it was also really good that I did other sports besides surfing.
Right.
And then boxing, I don't know, I started that at like 12, and I still am. I'm a very shy person and pretty quiet and kept. So I don't know, maybe my dad put me in it to like kind of just like get me more fired up and more of like a feisty person, I guess. I don't know.
I like it. I think that's pretty good logic for sure. You mentioned, you didn't have sponsors from a young age, and surfing, it is a community obsessed with the cult of youth, right? Like, we love finding young surfers. We love sponsoring them early on. We love putting them in the magazines, and a number of them, have those opportunities, and they use that support, and they make it to the highest levels of surfing, whether that's on the CT, whether that's big wave surfing, whether that's free surfing. But then you have another group of surfers that didn't have all those opportunities that still found a way to get there. Drive, motivation, talent, like physical gifts, etc. talk to me a little bit about that. Like when did that support start coming your way? Because now, you're established as a critical member of the Hurley program, alongside an A team of elite surfers like, Carissa Moore, Felipe Toledo, Kai Lenny, Connor O'Leary, and on and on and on. You're a critical part of that. You're a critical part of 2023 CT Shaper of the Year, Matt Biolis's Lost Surfboards team, putting up good numbers for him, and a number of other sponsors now. But talk to me about how that first started coming your way. Talk to me about that transition from maybe being under-recognized to having the support.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up, like I said, I had no main sponsor until I made the CT. But looking back on it now, I wouldn't change a thing. Which is really interesting because in the moment I was so bummed. Like all the girls around me that were at Surfing America and just like didn't live on Kauai, they all had main sponsors, and it was a little bit discouraging to say the least. But one thing that I will always cherish is the amount of people that came around me and just like supported me and uplifted me and did everything they could, even though they weren't like the main sponsor handing me money. People's encouragement to me was so much more than a sticker on my surfboard. That also falls back into community and stuff like that, where I would not be where I am without them. And my parents were like they were the main sponsor my whole young career. Without them, I wouldn't be able to have done all my amateur, all my QS at the time. All that would not be possible without my mom and dad. So when I eventually made the CT, I was also very happy for myself, but the amount of happiness I got from honestly just like, I was like, I did it for like the people that supported me and believed in me, and like they knew I could do it and they were right, and I did it, and I'm on the CT. It just made myself happy and made me so proud that I could do it for everyone that believed in me. But also like Matt Biolis has been one of my biggest supporters. I think I got my first custom board from him at 12, and without him, I wouldn't be where I am. He put so much hard work and his heart into building the best boards for me and the whole team. So I owe a lot to him. I seriously don't know where I'd be without him. And now that I'm on Hurley, it's super awesome because I've got to meet so many cool people, like you said. And it's really funny because I would say Riss is one of my best friends now. And I really only met her like 3 years ago when I got on Hurley. So that's crazy because I traveled with her last year a bunch and we just clicked. So it's just cool to see now that I was on Hurley and I'm like the teams that I got brought into, how like friendships have been made and stuff. And yeah, I'm really grateful for how everything worked out, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, well, it's well earned. And I think that's one of the nice things about surfing, right? Is there's not really anywhere to hide, whether it's a platform of here's my free surfing videos, or it's the platform of the QS or the CS or the CT. Like, you have the opportunity to show people what you're about, and I mean, Mitch Salazar is a co-host of mine on this podcast every so often. And for the last few years, like, we do a segment called Winners and Losers after every CT, which isn't just about like the results, but like who really wowed us. And yeah, I would say that you're probably Team Lineup, or Team Lineup's one of our favorite surfers, because we're constantly being did you see Gabby Bryan? Holy crap. And like, I think that there's a version of that's probably translated to the support you have from your sponsors now. And, even you mentioned Matt Biolis, like, he's not one to offer faint praise, like he will tell you exactly how he feels. And I think even in the last couple of weeks, he must have posted something on social media where he said, I think pound for pound, Gabby Bryan's the strongest power surfer on the CT. And I'm like, yeah, we've been saying that on the lineup. Thanks for agreeing with us. But it is like you are creating your own identity just through your work, which I think's awesome. You talked about Matt. You talked about getting a new batch of boards this year. when you say you get a new batch of boards, like what is he changing, right? Because if they're working pretty well, like how radical are the changes that he's putting into your equipment for 2024?
Well, I actually for Hawaii, I didn't change much. I had my couple of favorites, but I also broke like a few last year. So I just sent in my serial numbers of my favorite models, and I just got replicas of that in different sizes. I'm sure he makes a few tweaks because he's a magician in the shaping room, but I personally like to keep things very similar. I don't like changing it up too much. I know that like I did ask for a little bit more foam in my sunset boards because I just think I'm getting stronger and I can push it. So I was like, more foam. If I can push it, I'm gonna ride it. It's not gonna hinder me. It'll only help me catch waves and stuff. So I kept it very similar, but I'm sure he's made a few tweaks.
Are you the kind of surfer that memorizes every single dimension, like, length, height, width to the fraction, and all about, or are you just like, because I've seen them both, or are you just like, that board worked and that one didn't, and here's why, and then the shaper is like, I will interpret what you say and I will make those adjustments?
Yeah, I'm probably more like that. I actually have a funny story that last year on tour, I started working with Richard Dog Marsh,
Right.
and I don't know, forget where it was. I think it was Brazil. I was like, no, it was El Salvador. I'm like, we're like going through my boards. He's like, so which one's your favorite? And I'm like, yeah, my favorite. It's at home. I'm icing it. And he's like, what? You're icing your favorite board and you're here to contest? And I'm like, yeah. So now I write on the bottom, like with a Sharpie, I number them and write, like I have to make names for them so I know which ones are my favorite. And yeah, I'll just send Matt pictures of my favorite dimensions, and that's how I keep track.
So, okay.
No leaving the magic boards.
I love this. What's the name of your favorite board right now?
Okay, so I have a few. There was one that I buckled, but it still works super good. And it's called the Kit Kat because it's like have a break, have a Kit Kat. So I have a board named the Kit Kat. What else do I have? I don't know if you noticed, but my boards are really colorful. So I have one named Skittles.
Okay, I like it.
That's really good. And then the one that I forgot, the magic one, is called Missy because it was missing. So I think
this one.
I think Connor actually came up with that. He's like, that one's got to be named Missy.
That's great. I love this.
Yeah.
Well, and Matt, he's one of those shapers too that he doesn't just make Ferraris, right? He makes 5 by 19 and a quarter is probably one of the most seminal surf films of the last 30 years, right? He's got a number of fun shapes, a number of fun performance shapes. For you as a elite level surfer, do you ever let yourself like hop on a fish or hop on a single fin, or are you just like, nope, the blade has to stay sharp at all times. I'm surfing these boards while I'm on tour?
No, so actually this off season I got a MR California twin pin. Oh my gosh, it is the funnest board it's so much fun. I actually rode Brissett. She got me hooked on it. Like there was a bunch of lay days one day at this event and she brought one, and it's so fun. I think before I didn't used to get on different boards. I used to think, oh, it's going to mess my surfing up. But I definitely got on some fun boards this off season, and it brings you back to just how fun surfing is. Like you can just go out on a twin fin and just cruise down the line. It just makes you draw different lines too, which I think is super cool. And just gives you a different perspective. Although I always try to do power carves even on twin fins.
You mentioned that Carissa is, one of your best friends, and that's a recent friendship, and that you guys traveled on tour together. And it is interesting watching, the world's best surfers, navigate the world, navigate the championship tour, because we have seen pockets of groups, whether it's been the Brazilian Storm or the San Clemente Cyclone or whatever they're calling themselves, 2% crew, or even, the younger Australian group. And there's a lot of support in these little groups that you've seen over the last few years, where it's like, even if someone loses out early, they'll stay at the contest, they'll cheer on the other buddies in the group, and sort of a strength in numbers thing. And then you have some surfers that they're on their own program. Maybe they've got a big group already with, manager, trainer, shape or whatever, family members, and they're kind of set apart. Where do you fall, like personally on tour? Do you like having like a bigger support group of competitors? Do you like it, maybe more one-on-one with someone like Carissa, or do you consider yourself, I'm just kind of on my own program?
Yeah, this is actually a super interesting question because like the first year on tour, I was like obviously like I was like shy and like almost like, oh, I don't want to like step on anyone's toes. And then last year I feel like I really opened up and found my spot on the tour. And yeah, I spent, like I said, a lot of time with Carissa, and it's just you find people that you just click with. And I think that everyone does. And obviously most of the girls on tour are all friends. So you're like pretty much friendly with everybody, but you just have the certain people that you enjoy spending your downtime with. And for me, that was Riss. And I don't know, it's just so easy and natural. Like we would just do fun things, like we'd go get our nails done, or we fell in love with playing board games like Monopoly Go or Pictionary, and it was just something that we looked forward to doing. And we had so much in common too. Like both from Hawaii, we both love where we're from, and yeah, I now that she's not on tour, which is very sad, and I'm gonna miss her a lot. I'm happy for what she's gonna pursue now, but I also am really close with Connor O'Leary and Ryan, and because we all have work with Richard Marsh,
Right.
and I think that has also been one of the best things because they bring a like fun, fresh energy, or they don't. It's not so serious all the time, which I think is super important. And I think when you find a crew that makes everything easy, it's just where you belong. So yeah, I've definitely found the people that I like to hang out with and spend my downtime with.
Yeah. And all those people, yourself included, I guess one of the nice things if you're like a world-class talent is getting to spend time with other world-class talents like Carissa or Ryan or Connor, or even them getting to spend time with you. It takes whatever level you're at, and even if you're having fun, you're just rubbing right up against someone who's so good, and you're like, this is sharpening my own surfing. I remember like Dane Reynolds said this years ago when he was on tour, because people were like, oh, go off tour, do free surfing, etc. He's like, yeah, I can do that. But like he did kind of admit, he's like, the cool thing about being on tour is that it forces you to surf your very best, like because you're just around the best surfers all the time. You were sharpening yourself even when you're surfing by yourself and training, because you're at that level. And there's plenty of like stressors as well to go along with that. But I thought that was a really good take, especially for someone who's as good as that. And you hear that constantly with CT surfers is like, yeah, we have a dream lifestyle. It doesn't come without stress. Like it doesn't come without mental health toll. But if you are someone who's interested in being the very best surfer you can be, it's the best environment because you're just constantly staying sharp amongst your peers.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that also comes down to like, for instance, I started working with Richard Marsh last year, and I never like realized, because I never really specifically watched Connor and Ryan, but their backhand is so insane. And when you like focus on something, like you're watching, you see their footage too, you're like, you learn so much. You're like, their backhand, their surfing is just insane. So when you're constantly rewatching footage together or something like that, you learn so much as well, like you were saying. And I think that's super cool.
Right. What's the saying? Like, the more you learn, the less you know. Like like when I was younger, I thought I was a pretty good surfer, and now I am much better than I was. But I'm like, oh no, I'm way worse. Like just comparatively, where you're like, man, no, the distance between the very best and like civilians like myself on every single thing, like bottom turn technique, like entry point, like I'm more in awe of what you and your peers do every single year, just because I learn a little bit more, and then I realize how difficult that is that you guys are doing. Yeah. It's really impressive.
Yeah. It's insane. The level of surfing on tour is just insane. Everyone around us it's seriously like one of those things where like I realized it so much when I got on tour. When you surround yourself with that much talent, you naturally rise up to being the best that you can be, because you're like, I got to keep up. It's just crazy.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up too, because you're pretty fresh on tour. This is your third year. And one thing I'm always interested in getting, insights on is what the biggest difference was between, QS, CS level and the CT, because most people will say a version of like just how fast and powerful and technical the CT level surfers are. It really doesn't even translate to broadcast, where if you squint, you're like, oh yeah, like maybe that CS surfer, that free surfer versus that CT surfer, they're all in the same ballpark. But the thing I continue to hear is like when you're actually at the CT and when you actually see them live, you're like, this is a completely different species than I thought it was. But I'm curious if that's been your experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also, for me, one of the biggest things transitioning from Challenger Series to CT is that when you're on the Challenger Series and you're a talented surfer, you can catch a subpar wave and surf it like you can make it happen with a not so good wave. But when you're on the CT, you have to be on the best waves because everybody surfs so good that there's no way that if you're not on the best waves, you're not making it through a heat, because everyone just surfs so good that it just comes down to wave selection so much. And that was one of my biggest learning curves, because I would do that. I would be like, oh, I can make it happen with this wave. It's like not the best wave, but I can make it happen. And then you look at the back and you see your competitor who also surfs just insane. You're like, oh, well, they're on the best wave and they're also surfing
Right.
insane. So yeah, there goes my spot.
That's a great point. We're going to take one more quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we will return very shortly. All right, this is the Lineup Podcast. I am Dave Prodan, back with Kauai's Gabriela Bryan. Gabby, I've enjoyed this conversation so much. And, one of the things that seems like it's a huge theme of the 2024 Championship Tour already, even after the first event, is this changing of the guard, both on the men's and women's tour phenomenon. And, it's an interesting conversation, right? Because I think, Kelly Slater being who he is and having been at this level for about 35 years has probably set a pretty unfair standard for every other elite level surfer in terms of how long they're on the championship tour. And, I think it's one of those things where if you have, world title talent and multi-world champions and stuff, if we're able to get them on tour for 10 years, that is a huge chunk of time. So, you mentioned how close you are with Carissa. She's been on tour for 13 years. Now she's moving on to another chapter, and more power to her. I think the fact that we had her as long as we did, we're so lucky to have that. Steph Gilmore, she's taken a year off. Felipe Toledo, he's decided to take a year off. But even before those decisions, you and your colleagues and your contemporaries, I think generationally, are really making inroads into the CT. Is that something that you personally are aware of, that you're like, oh, yeah, there's levels to this. I've been building up and now I'm ready to level up again. And there is opportunity in 2024.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually crazy because I'm going into my third year and I can't even believe it. I remember on my rookie year, I was talking with Brisa, and Brisa was going into her third year, and she's like, if it's just feeling like, if you have anything like you want to ask me, I'm going into my third year, but I still feel like so fresh. And I remember thinking in my head, like, third year, if I can make it to my third year and still be on tour, that I would feel like I'm like a veteran. But now that I'm here, I'm like, I still feel like I'm so fresh and I have so much more to give. And it's just crazy because time flies when you're on the tour, and you're constantly learning and trying to improve yourself. And there's so much that goes into it for us that I think that's probably why it flies by so fast. But it is something that I want to stay on tour for a long time, and I love it. So I'm going to do everything I can to progress my surfing outside the jersey and then bring it in to competition. And obviously after, I want to improve my barrel riding and bigger waves and stuff. So I have a lot of goals for myself outside the jersey and just improving.
What about inside the jersey? Do you approach each season with like, okay, my goal this year is to, make a semifinal or to make a final or to requalify or to finish top 5? Like, do you approach each season that way? And if so, what are your goals for 24?
Yeah, so I'm a big goal person. I love having goals, and it's just the best feeling to check them off. So that's obviously what I want to do. And this year, I think my biggest goal is to win a CT event. I haven't done that yet. And so that's at the top. What else do I have? I obviously want to make the final 5, but there's so many in between ones. Like, I would love to get a 9-point ride or higher. I haven't cracked the 9s yet, so love to get a 9. My goal is to do a quarterfinal finish or better in the first 4 out of 5 in the first half. So got to do that now that I never got a quarter at Pipe. What else? I want to get a standout barrel in competition. And yeah, obviously everyone's goal is to win a world title.
Right.
Like, no doubt about it. No one's on tour to not win a world title. So I'm going to say that that's one of my goals, but there's so many smaller goals to get there that I have for myself. And I think it's definitely a thing where you can look at the whole picture, but you got to look at the steps to get there. And that's what I do. I just make goals that will help me get to my ultimate biggest dream and goal is a world title.
It's a great point. And I think one of those goals that you've achieved since your rookie season, and to be candid, not every surfer does. And that is, before those results can come, you have to be one of those surfers who the judges and the surfers on tour know and understand you can post excellent scores, right? And again, to be candid, there's been surfers throughout history, and certainly my time on tour, men and women, who are great competitors, who have maybe gotten to this level and had, versions of success, but had a hard time cracking into the 8, 9, 10 range. They'd be very smart. They could get 6s and 7s, and they had a hard time lasting. And I think that it's a big deal for young surfers like yourself who can come in and post excellent scores, which you have, and I think it's such a huge psychological advantage outside of yourself, of course, for everyone to understand that. But I'd imagine for a surfer too, knowing that you've got that ability is sort of step one to be like, okay, now my goals can be like, I'm getting into the quarters, or I'm making the finals, or I'm going to win an event. The surfing's always got to come first.
Yeah, for sure. And that is definitely something that I've learned since being on tour, is that I am where I am because of my surfing. I belong where I am. And once you start to believe that, it's almost like you surf better because you're just freer, and in the back of your head, like, I can do it, which for a little while is like, I was a little hesitant. Like, did I get here just off of luck? Did I get here because things went the right way for me? But I've learned that I am where I am because of my surfing. I can put up big numbers, and I just got to do what I know how to do and trust myself, which is one of my biggest things, is just trusting myself.
Yeah. Well, you absolutely belong on tour. I can't wait to see what you're going to do at the Hurley Pro Sunset Beach, as well as the rest of the 2024 CT season. Before you go, we did put out some feelers on Instagram at the Lineup Pod for questions. And we were laughing just in that last break because I don't think we've ever had such a star-studded list of listeners write questions in ever. This is our 182nd episode. But we will go through them. First question is from @_India Robinson, who asks,
"Oh, India,
who on tour would you call if you were in danger?"
India, for sure.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? I guess is the question.
India, like, I don't know, because she's one of my best friends on tour as well, and if I was in danger, one, she'd probably be in danger with me, which wouldn't really, definitely be in danger together, but I'd call her. She'd come save me for sure. I have enough trust in her.
That's good.
But if we were in danger together, I would call, I'd call Sal. Sal would come rescue us.
I probably would too. I'd probably call Sal.
I'd call you too, yeah.
Yeah, I'd call Sal.
Sal would be down. She'd find a way.
I agree. Well, that's a good question. Okay. Next question is from @your_mom_surfs, who asks, what is your favorite fin template and why?
Oh, so I've actually been playing around with fins a little bit, like the end of last season, and I love the JS large FCSs. They just, I don't know, I was on Felipe's before, which I also really like, and just something, I jumped on the JSs, and it gave me the ability to, when I wanted to, release my fins more, to bring more of like a, I guess, finesse to my surfing, because I feel like I can find myself just overpowering everything, like just wanting to go up and smash a section. So yeah, I've been loving the JS template by FCS.
Great answer. And the last question that we've culled from the herd of questions for you is from @Jacko_Baker, who asks, ask her if her training is always angry like mine.
Okay, so no, it's not always angry like yours, Jacko, but we do have the same trainer. I started working with Adam Tripads middle of last year, and oh my gosh, this off season, I thought I might die, but that was only once. I came over to Hawaii for with me and Leo for like a preseason thing, and that assault bike, my least favorite thing in the world. I was doing like, I don't know, red intervals, and it was like 25 seconds as hard as you can with a minute rest, and I was on the ground for a solid like 2 minutes after that. So that one was angry, a few other angry ones, but no, Jacko, I think yours are a lot more angrier.
Man, I really want to see Jacko Baker's angry training sessions now. But thank you, Jacko. Thank you, everyone that wrote in questions at the Lineup Pod. If we didn't get to yours, we will try to hit you guys on DM as well. We're now down to our final segment. It is the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can.
Okay.
First question. If you could only have one board setup for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
Thruster.
Coffee or tea?
Ooh, tea. I don't drink coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Pizza.
Last book you read?
Ooh, what was it? It was by Colleen Hoover, and it was the second book in the Slam series. It's really good.
Best surf film ever?
Best surf film ever. Anything with Andy in it. I love watching Andy.
Me too. One wave you never have to go back to?
I never have to go back to. I'll probably never go back to China. Maybe.
Okay, that's very fair. If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life and you can dreamcast it, perfect conditions, just your friends, just you, whatever, which wave would it be?
Oh, it would be a wave at home for sure. Can't say.
Fair enough.
But yeah.
I like that. Best person to share a lineup with?
Ooh, I'm going to pick a couple because it's more fun with friends. I'm going to go India, Riss, Connor, and Ryan.
Good crew. I wouldn't get many waves, but that's probably not a problem for you. Worst person to share a lineup with?
Oh. Okay, I hope they don't take this bad, but there's some surfers on tour that they're just wave magnets, and it's probably not the most fun to surf with them. One, because they're probably very fit and they catch every wave, but Ethan and Leo, they are wave magnets. Waves, you'll be sitting right next to them, and waves will just go right to them.
Yeah. Well, but
they're both very nice guys.
Well,
they're wave magnets.
That was a very nice way to put it. I'm impressed you named names, but that answer of like, oh, I'm not going to name anyone, but definitely people on tour, that's pretty frequent. Like, that's hard. It's hard to get waves on tour.
They're wave magnets.
Yeah.
But they're very kind people.
Yeah, that's, yin and yang. Last one. Finish the sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by.
I will next achieve a state of happiness by being myself, enjoying the journey, and giving everything I got to every opportunity that comes my way.
I love it. Gabby Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the lineup. Congratulations on all your success so far. Can't wait to see what you do in Sunset Beach. Can't wait to see what you do with the rest of the season. And I'll look forward to catching up with you in person very soon.
Thank you. I had so much fun talking.